I'm Jenami Sikibol, and this afternoon I will be discussing our topic, which is how to measure radiation and minimizing the hazard caused by radiation. Introduction to radiation measurement. So before ta magsugod, let's understand first what is radiation. So radiation is visible and cannot be felt, so special tools are needed to detect and measure it. So, a radiation is something that we cannot see or feel. Dili nato siya makita o dili po nato mabati. Mao nga kinahanglan ta og special tools to detect or measure it. So, measuring radiation help protect people and the environment. So, measuring radiation kay importante kaayo tungod kay it helps people and the environment through measuring. We can know if the radiation level is safe or dangerous. So different units are used depending on what aspect of radiation is measured. So there are also different unit used in radiation measurement. Depende kung unsa nga aspect ang atong gusto, may balaan like kung pila ka energy or pila ka exposure ang ato ang i-detect. So mao na ang ato ang tun-an karong adlaw. Now, let's move on to our next slide, which is the tool used to measure radiation. Geiger counters detect radioactive particles and energy, such as the alpha particles, the beta particles, and the gamma rays, emitted by radioactive materials. First, we have the Geiger counter. Ang Geiger counter kay device na siya nga ginagamit para ma-detect kung naabay radiation sa usa ka area. Now, it sends the alpha, the beta, and the gamma rays. So, usually, kung na-radiation, ang Geiger counter or ang Geiger counter is mo-beep ni siya or mo-show o grading. So, gamit kaayo ni siya sa laboratories, the hospital, or any places nga kinahanglan i-check ang radiation level. So, the next is dosimeters. A device used to track the amount of radiation absorbed by people, particularly those who work with radiation. They are crucial for monitoring worker safety in the fields like healthcare, the nuclear power, and the emergency response by measuring cumulative exposure over time. So, kana nakita ninyo dira as the pictures is mao na siya ang example sa dosimeter. So, ang dosimeter is kani nga device kay ginasuot sa mga tao nga nagtrabaho with radiation like sa hospital, sa nuclear power plants, or the emergency. It helps measure pila ka radiation ang naabsorb sa lawas over time. Murag tracker ba siya nga tracker nga exposures para ma-monitor kung safe ba ang worker or sobra na ba ang dose about sa radiation. So, the last is the ionization chambers are used to accurately measure radiation levels and dose rates in the air. They work by detecting the electrical charge produced by ionizing radiation passes through a gas, with the resulting current being directly proportional to the radiation intensity. So, ang ionization chamber is more siya og the same sa naong sa katong Geiger counters. So, ang example sa ionizing chambers na pictures kanang naadra sa ibabaw. So, kini siya ang ginagamit to measure radiation levels in the air. It works by detecting electric charge nga ginaproduce sa ionizing radiation nga muagi sa gas. So, the current nga makuha kay directly proportional sa radiation intensity. So, meaning kung mas dako ang current, mas taas ang radiation level. So, this is often used in laboratories for accurately measurements about the radiation. Now, let's talk about the radiation unit. So, we have the three main kinds of radiation unit, which are the radioactivity, absorbed dose, and equivalent dose. Radioactivity in measure is the rate of radioactive decay, and it is expressed in unit like the becquerel and the curie. The becquerel is the SI unit defined as 1 deca per seconds, while the curie is an older unit equal to 3.7 by 10 to the exponent of 10 deca per seconds. So radioactivity, it is measured kung unsa ka paspas mo decay ang radioactive materials, and ang unit ani kay ang becquerel, which means 1 deca per seconds. Before, people is used na ginagamit nila ang curie, pero karon mas gamit na ang becquerel. So kung taas ang becquerel, pasabot ana mas active ang radioactive source. So the next is absorbed dose. The energy imparted by ionizing radiation per unit mass of irradiated materials. The unit of absorbed dose are the rad and the gray. So, ang absorbed dose is this measures how much energy from radiation is absorbed by a material or by the human body. Ang unit ani kay rad or gray. For example, kung ang radiation mosulod sa tissue, ang absorbed dose kay nagpakita kung pila ka energy ang nasuyop sa the higher the absorbed dose, mas dako ang possible damage sa cells. Equivalent dose is defined as the measure of biological impact of radiation in human. Expressed in the sievert, it is calculated by multiplying the absorbed dose in grays by the radiation withing factors, which accounts for the effective biological damage caused by different types of radiation. So, equivalent dose is kini kay nag-measure sa biological effect sa radiation sa tawo. Ang unit ani kay sievert. Gikuha ni siya by multiplying the absorbed dose with the radiation withing factors, kay lahi-lahi man og epekto ang mga klasing radiation. So, for example, mas harmful man alpha kaysa gamma, so mas taas ang iyang factors. Why minimize radiation exposure? So, why we need to minimize radiation exposure? Because high exposure to radiation can harm cells, cause sickness, or long-term problems like cancer. Protecting everyone is important to prevent these health risks. The reason is simple. Kung taas ang radiation nga ma-expose sa tao, it can harm our cells and can cause sickness or long-term disease like cancer. Mao nga importante nga we always follow safety measures. Protecting everyone is important dili lang sa nagtrabaho with radiation but also sa public o sa environment. Mas maayo nga likayan kaysa mas magantos sa resulta sa sobrang nga exposure sa ato ang lawas. So now we proceed to the principle to minimize hazard. There are three main principles nga dapat nato tandaan. So first is the limit the time spent na radiation. So kung mubora ang oras nga naa ka sa duol sa radiation source, gamay ra pod ang imong exposure or imong radiation nga makuha. So kung mo check man gani ka sa area na naay radiation, dapat dali ra og ayok pagdugay. So the second is increase the distance from the source. The further you are, the lesser the exposure nga imuhang makuha na radiation. Mao kung pwede, magpahilayo gyud ta sa radiation source to prevent also the more radiation. So the last is use shielding materials like lead aprons or concrete barriers. So we use materials like lead aprons or concrete walls to block radiation. So example ana sa X-ray room, ang mga staff or ang mga doctors is magsuot yun na sila og lead aprons para dili sila ma-expose. So remember, the time, distance, and shielding is maog yun ang tulo ka basic safety rules to prevent also radiations kay imuhang makuha sa imuhang lawas. Now, we move on to our last slide, ALARA Principle and Personal Protective Equipment or PPE. ALARA means as low as reasonable achievable is minimize exposure using practical safety measure. Follow best practice and protocols, regularly monitor radiation levels and equipment, and wear lead aprons and glasses to protect vital organs. Also, training is essential for the safe handling and awareness. ALARA principles and PPE is ALARA means as low as reasonable achievable. Pasabot ani, we should always keep radiation exposure as low as possible. Gamiton lang kung kinahanglan ug likayan kung pwede. To apply ALARA, we must follow safety practice, regularly monitor radiation levels and equipment, and wear personal protective equipment like lead aprons and lead glasses. These things protect our vital organs from radiation. Also, training is a very important. Kay kung kabalo ka unsaon paghandle sa equipment or radiation, mas safe gyud ka. So in short, ALARA reminds us, be careful, be aware, and always be protected. That's end my report about how to measure radiation and minimizing the hazard caused by radiation. We learned that radiation is invisible but measurable using tools like the Geiger counter, dosimeter, and ionization chamber. We also learned that units of measurement, safety principles, and the ALARA principle for protection. Always remember, radiation can be dangerous, pero kung kabalota sa safety practice, we can work safely and confidentially. Thank you for everyone for listening, and I hope you learned something new today. And that's all.